Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and wherever you are in the world. My name is Rich Clark. I'm going to be talking for Throwback Thursday about some of my favourite films. Now, I've been doing a lot about technology recently, or the future, or androids, or AI. So I'm going to do a trilogy today of films about crime, potential crime in the future. And these three films are one was actually done in the 80s, late 80s, one was in the early 90s, and the other was in the early 90s. And then I'm going to talk about a major, next week, I'm going to talk about a major film series. But anyway, the first film I'm going to talk about is a film called RoboCop. Now, people are thinking, well, RoboCop, that must be there's loads of people would say it's a trashy film, it's a bit cheesy, but actually there's an underlying message in it which is very important. So, to give you a bit more brief, RoboCop was a film in 1987 directed by Paul Verhoeven, a very famous Dutch avant-garde sort of director in the 70s, and then came into the 80s and then came into Hollywood. The actual script was written by a guy called Edward Neumeier, and Neumeier actually wrote some of the ideas on Blade Runner, which is a film I'm going to talk about next week. So this film is set in a crime-ridden Detroit in the near future, and RoboCop centres on police officer Alex Murphy, who is murdered by a gang of criminals. And revived by the mega corporation Omni Consumer Products as a cyborg law enforcer, RoboCop. Unaware of his former life, RoboCop executes a campaign against crime while coming to terms with the lingering fragments of his humanity. The idea of this was it was considered very gory at the time. It's not nowadays, but it was at the time. And the emphasised violence throughout the film made it so outlandish that it became comical, and censor boards believed it was too extreme. And RoboCop had some shortenings of it. But the main plot of this, anyway, was in the near future dystopia, Detroit is on the brink of social and financial collapse. Overwhelmed by crime and dwindling resources, the city grants the mega corporation Omni Consumer Products, OCP, control of the Detroit Police Department. OCP senior president Dick Jones demonstrates a law enforcement droid, which is a robot, it malfunctions and brutally kills an executive, allowing ambitious junior executive Bob Morton to introduce OCP's chairman, the old man, to his own project. Meanwhile, at the beginning of this story, is Officer Alex Murphy is transferred to the Metro West precinct. Murphy and his partner Anne Lewis purchase notorious criminals Clarence Bodaker and his gang. And these gang ambushes him and tortures Murphy until Bodaker fatally shoots him. Morton has Murphy's corpse converted into RoboCop, a heavily armed cyborg with no memory of his former life. So the idea of this is that it's kind of like the bionic man, but it's actually done from like a futuristic idea. So basically, they can still use his skills, but use it in a cyborg, which will make it harder to destroy as a normal human cop. Heavily armoured cyborg with no memory of his former life, RoboCop is programmed with 3 directives: serve the public trust, protect the innocent, and uphold the law. A 4th prime directive, Directive 4, is classified. So when he's reassigned to Metro West, RoboCop is hailed by the media for his brutally efficient campaign against crime.
Well, you better open at a count of 3. 1, 2.
Drop the gun. You are under arrest. Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.
But Lewis, his former partner, suspects that he is Murphy, recognising the unique ways he holsters his gun. And after experiencing a nightmare of Murphy's death during maintenance, RoboCop encounters Lewis, who addresses him as Murphy. While on patrol, RoboCop arrests Emil, who recognises Murphy's mannerisms. This furthers RoboCop's recall.
You're alive. You are coming with me.
I know you. You're dead. We killed you. We killed you. We killed you. You're dead. We killed you.
Robocop then uses the police database to identify Emil's associates and reviews police record. He then further finds out more about his memories about his former home. His wife and his son has moved away after his death. Elsewhere, they find out more about what has happened by this gang and why this gang is then committing all these crimes. And the crimes are committed by this gang are actually funded by OCP, the boss, who is actually funding Robocop. So there's this very much a conflict of corporations, conflict of interest and so forth. And it's actually, as much as people don't like the film and think it's comical, there's an underlying thing of that, how much is the criminal force in cities actually interlinked with technology or government or actually the police force itself. So while all this is going on, they start finding out things, and Robocop then starts finding out exactly what is going on. And with Jones, they start to work out a few things. Obviously, Robocop wants to avenge the man who he was as Alex Murphy's death. And all within this, he starts finding out the more and more and more exactly what's going on. And into the end, that he also finds out that the gang with all these different people are literally Clarence Bodick was actually he's in Lord in league with Dick Jones. So what they do is then he finds out when he arrests him that he gets taken out of prison. So he starts working out things. The one thing is with this film, and whether the ideas of people liked it or not, was the idea of, it was kind of, we'd seen Terminator, we'd seen the sort of action movies, but what they did is they put it into a futuristic dystopia, which was probably, though obviously it's very 80s fied, you can see the actual direction and the clothing, for example, but the idea of how we see crime now and how that is, Robocop actually would be, it's quite reminiscent of what the crime in some of the cities are ending up in America, especially Detroit, which is actually has become a squalor of the place it was so renowned to in the 50s and 60s through the Motor City industry. One of the things also with Robocop is quite interesting is the idea of how the android and cybotics work. The actual actor Peter Weller, who was actually learned things through mime, and actually was very interesting how he got the actual movements going. But what this film does is talking about the idea of how we, with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and these ideas is how that we can have our memories fragmented, and it actually can cause us problems. So actually, as much as Robocop is this cyborg, his human memories come to haunt him. In fact, what they do is he overcomes them. So this is what's interesting about the film. And at the time, this film, though it probably looked cheap to nowadays, it actually was quite a successful film. And it was also, as a child, I remember watching it and thinking it was excellent. Probably shouldn't have been watching it in 1987 because I was only about 7 or 8, but it was something I'd seen. And I think more of it, I like the idea of the concept of this, good versus evil. And there was also redemption, which also...
How can we help you, officer?
Dick Jones is wanted for murder.
This is absurd. That thing is a violent mechanical psychopath.
My program will not allow me to act against an officer of this company.
These are serious charges. What is your evidence?
I had to kill Bob Morton because he made a mistake. Now it's time to erase that mistake. I had to kill Bob Morton because he made a mistake. Now it's time to erase that mistake. I want a chopper, now! We will walk to the roof very calmly. I will board the chopper with my hostage. Anybody tries to stop me, the old geezer gets it. Dick, you're fired!
Thank you.
Nice shooting, son. What's your name?
Murphy.
Is something I'm sure in most films that we like to watch. So what I think about this film is what is interesting is that when we look at the idea of who we are as people, is that how we can get redemption if we're giving another chance. And this is what maybe actually will happen with cyborgs or AI or technology, is that actually people who have died, who they actually can bring them back to life, they can create them and all these different things. It's an actual interesting idea which doesn't get discussed very much in films. So I think RoboCop, as much as it has its kind of cheesy elements and probably is very much a product of the 80s, is actually, there's a lot of basis on actual technology bosses which were actually happening in the 80s, how greedy they were becoming, how corrupt they were becoming. And if we look at now the mechanical industry giants of the computer industry like Bill Gates and so forth, they sort of people who are actually showing that they mean the world of good and they mean all these good things, but underneath it all there's a criminal element. So yeah, it's a very interesting film. If you've never seen it, watch it. Do watch it for tongue-in-cheek, but it is an actual excellent film, and I think it's a film where we can see the ideas of how crime may have to go to certain extremes to be solved. Again, it's an alternative future. Whether it happens, I don't know. Anyway, enjoy.